There we go. Okay, lovely. All righty, let's get this started. Let's get this started around here. All righty. Righty. What the heck? I'm typing. Let's get this started. Let's get this started. Start your engines. Oh my God. Your engines. Start your engines. It's Monday. Monday. Let's go. Oh, good Lord. Morning. How are you? How's everybody doing? Thank you so much for joining me. Yeah, it's Monday, right? It's still Monday. And as you can tell, I need to be motivated, right? I should get motivated because I've been up all night. I'm in the midst of writing a grant and I can't begin to tell you. Should I just tell you? I haven't slept. So you can tell this is why I'm treating this one as no filter because no filter. I have no makeup on, right? It's just me without makeup, without anything. It's just me. How do you like me like that? Right? I have no makeup on. But truly, I'm blessed to be here because it was such a challenge. You have absolutely no idea. We had a beautiful day yesterday. Maybe that's what happened. I went to be with my friend Linda Lee Tower, and we were at the Girls Point Yacht Club. And it was a beautiful day. So everyone was dressed with their hats. It was high tea. So everyone was dressed in their hats and so and all the women. And it was such a thing to celebrate with women, to celebrate women in our role, right? And was we got to celebrate just being a woman, just being a woman with purpose, a woman who is making strides, making a difference in the community, women who are making strides in the region that they live in, and women who are making strides on the national stage, right? And for some of us, international stage, right? And so it was great to just celebrate womanhood, to just celebrate being feminine, being femininity, and to celebrate being elegant, and to celebrate our personhood. In today's world, it is becoming almost politically incorrect to say that you're a female, to walk in your gender. It's everyone else gets offended when you say who you are. I'm a woman and I'm female just as much as everybody else expects me to respect their personhood as much as I respect yours. I am not forcing mine on you. I expect you to respect mine. And so it was just great to be celebrated as a woman. We could dress up, wear hats, wear makeup, and just be feminine. I wore bell bottoms because it's summer. And this summer, I am just going to wear bell bottoms. It's cool, it's flowing. You don't have to worry about whether you have issues or, you don't want this to show, you don't want that to show, whatever. You'll need to unlock your iPhone. I cannot believe ladies and gentlemen, if ever there was a conspiracy theory that you're doing something, this was it. You just heard my phone go off. My phone is on vibrate, so it's silenced. But then you heard Siri say, I need to unlock my iPhone. I didn't talk to Siri. The phone was sitting here. I didn't press it. So I'm a firm believer that these phones have apps and that the apps capture whatever we say, right? So I just want to tell you all that it was so great to be out there with women celebrating women. So often that's something that just walking in your personhood, just being yourself nowadays seems like it's something for other people to feel upset about or to feel affronted by, right? So it was just great to dress up, to be feminine, and to celebrate it, and to be amongst other people who thought like that, to be amongst other people. I think we are too sensitive today, wouldn't you say? We're too sensitive. We're a little too sensitive. We're too sensitive because everybody gets offended when their rights are not acknowledged. Sometimes it's not about that, right? Uh, Do what you want with your body. It's your body. You get only one body while you're here. Do what you want with it. You want to cut it, you want to strip it open, you want to treat it like a giant scientific experiment. Do with that as you wish, right? But one thing I do know, just as much as you have the right to do with yours as you wish, I have the right to do with mine as I wish, right? So it was the thing, it was quite the thing. And throughout the country in the month of May, there'll be opportunities for teas everywhere where women are going to pull out their hats. My mother left me a collection of hats. So I have like maybe half a dozen. And then my friend Linda Tarver gave me two hats about 6, 7 last year, I think it was last summer or something like that. So I have quite a collection of hats. Honestly, as a girl, I grew up wearing hats because they had to put hats on us to go to church, especially Mother's Day and during the month of May and stuff like that, and Easter. But when I became an adult, I was like, that I'm not doing, because it brought back memories of oppressive religion. So I shied away from it. But I a few years ago, I was invited to a tea, and they said, wear your mother's hat. And I felt, this was like about 8 years ago. And I felt like, are you kidding me? So I went to my mom and I said, I need to wear one of your hats. And at first she was like, I'm not sure I want you to wear one of my hats, because I love my hats. And I'm like, lady, give it up. Right? So I chose one of her hats to wear that matched an outfit. We had to wear all white. So I chose a pink hat. And ever since then, I fell in love with hats. So now I'm like, okay, we're just going to wear hats all day. So today I want to talk about no filter. So are you with me? Are you ready? I need to grab a pillow, so I'm going to walk away from the camera just a little bit, but you can still hear me. So I need to grab a pillow. So we're going to, you like this pillow? I love it too. It's one of my new collections. Right? I like it. Do you like it? It's one of my new collections. It actually matches something in my bedroom. Yeah, I told you guys, I like my living spaces nice. So it matches the comforter. It comes with the shams and stuff, and it matches the pattern. This is the pattern on the comforter right here. And this is the color. It's so regal. And talk about being regal. Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex. That's her title. I don't know why they're calling her. Oh wow, lost my view there for a minute. Okay, there we go. I don't know why they're calling her by her full name, but she's the Duchess of Sussex. She gave birth to a boy. So they announced like half an hour prior to that she went into labor. And like 20 minutes later, they were like, she's giving birth to a boy. You know what that means, right? She had the baby. They fixed it up. They weighed him. They checked him. They did everything, make sure he has nothing. Then they announced. Then they made the announcement. So by the time they announced she had gone into labor, she had already had the baby. Right? But they're probably not going to issue photographs for a while. So congratulations to her. She did it right, didn't she? She did it right. She was an actress, yes, in Hollywood, yes. She didn't sleep around with everyone. She didn't become part of the baby mama situation. Hence the reason why she was chosen by a prince, right? A prince chose her to marry her because she didn't become part of the baby mama. So if nothing else, that serves as an inspiration to everyone else, to other young girls, to young girls, that to other women, that do it right, it does pay off in the end, right? If nothing else, even if it means that she had to wait, even if it means she had to wait until she was in her 30s. Good Lord, she was in her mid 30s. You could almost say it was beyond the age of appeal, because it seems like men like women younger. They like younger and younger and younger, as much young as 3 today, right? As long as you're female and look like if you can walk on 2 legs, that's all they care about, right? So she did it right. She waited and waited and waited and waited. And then the right man came along. He just happened to be a prince. Isn't that something? So that's a message for other women who and for women in entertainment, women in politics, women in social life, women in entertainment. Do it right. Wait. It is worth the wait. Don't just sleep with everyone because, oh, I'm so lonely and I just gotta have a man. The social environments that condition people to have to constantly be involved with sex and seeing sex as a fulfillment or a pinnacle of human achievement is unbelievable. So it forces people to conform to current ideologies and practices that they probably would not otherwise be engaged in. You don't have to have sex with someone just because you feel an urge to have sex. We should apply restraint. Yes, I'm preaching it and I'm telling it. Yes, we should live it. And I'm telling you, and do I look hard up? You bet I'm not. I am as straight as you want to be. But I was reared in a culture where I was told that you should wait for the best to come to you and let them come. And don't give yourself away to everyone else, because then you're not going to attract the best. And and everybody can say amen to that. So Meghan Markle is a living example of that. And that should serve as an inspiration to young women everywhere. Wait, not just young women, but women in politics, women in business. Don't just choose someone, because when you become entangled with someone and you're making a permanent decision on a temporary feeling, because it's a temporary feeling, it's not permanent, then you make a lifetime decision surrounding that. Then you have lifetime issues when you want to leave it because it no longer suits your purpose. That's just being realistic. So we don't put it in the proper terms or put it in the proper context, so we don't know how to quantify it. But the real truth of the matter is this, that you have to look at it within contextually. Contextually, it's that we're making what? A long-term decision based on a short-term problem, a short-term situation. What's your short-term situation? You are alone, not lonely, you're alone. It's a Friday night and everyone on social media is hanging out. Everybody is posting pictures of them with their guy. They're Netflixing and chill. They're Huluing and Duluing. They're doing everything else. And so you feel, well, what's wrong with me? So you pick up a glass of wine and you start scrolling through your contacts list and you start texting people to initiate some sort of contact. Remember, this program is called No Filter today, right? So we're talking, right? And so you start calling people, then you get involved. You have sex, then you have sex with them again because it felt good. So you have sex with them again, you have sex with them again. And then you use that to make a long-term decision. And the sex felt good, the person is okay. So you start thinking long-term. Then you make a lifetime decision based on a temporary feeling on a Friday night, a Thursday night, a Saturday night, a Sunday morning. You may have called home and they ask you if you're not married yet. Or your sister made you feel bad because she has a man and she's been married for 18, 20 years. So she's like, you still can't find anybody? Something must be wrong with you. Or your girlfriend makes you feel bad. Is something wrong with you where you don't have a man? Or your cousin or your coworker or someone you went to high school with or you went to college with, and you're scrolling through social media. These things happen to people, and you're looking at pictures that people post about them in situations. And so you become attached to the idea that This is what life is like. Let me just help you out. It is not. And I'm going to explain to you why, right? Because you make a long term, lifetime decision on a temporary situation and we end up paying for it, right? Aloneness is different from loneliness. Being popular is different from having influence. I dated someone who liked the popular girl. He had a popular woman, right? And that must have developed after he and I started dating because it was going crazy there for a minute. But he liked the popular thing. He thought that was what was cool. Then he found out that having influence is different from being popular. The minute she was no longer popular in the capacity that she was, he dropped her like hot cakes. You know where I was? I was still in the position I was in. Then he learned the difference between being popular and having influence. Influence connotes to power. So he realized if he wanted something done, the best person to do it was the person who had influence, because the person who had influence has access. Access is power. Do you see what I mean? So he learned real quickly, and that transformed his world. Too late, though. Was too late for him, right? So when Harry was choosing Meghan, was choosing a wife, he didn't look for someone who was popular. He looked for someone whom he loved and someone who had influence. She came with influence, right? She could get things done. That was all he needed. He didn't care if she won Miss Congeniality. He didn't care if she was so popular that every boo thing and every guy out there, because sometimes when you are that popular, that means you have a lot of boo things. A lot of people have access to you and have known you. When I was growing up, they used to tell us, don't be common, right? That means don't spread yourself out. I know it sounds antiquated. Some of you are guffawying like, oh, that sounds so antiquated. You know something? At the end of the day, for a woman, men are different from women in very fundamental ways. A man can spread his wild oats forever and a day. That has not changed in 50 years, in 60 years, in 70 years, in 100 years. But a woman, she can never do that. And that's what we're working to change societal norms about the perceptions of women. How if a woman chooses to exercise her sexuality, not femininity. Femininity is different from sexuality. If a woman chooses to exercise her sexuality and to explore her sexuality, in this context, in this society, she's seen as a slut. We're working to change those words and change those words and acronyms that describe people because they have negative connotations, right? But at the same time, individually, we do have a responsibility to self. Now, you will make those decisions, and then if you are willing to pay the price when it comes back later, then more power to you. Some people are like, I don't care. I make enough money. I'm at a certain place. I occupy a certain space where that doesn't even bother me, or it doesn't. Okay, then good for you. That's a good thing. But if you are comfortable with it, and this is what I say to folks all the time, are you comfortable with it? I was talking to someone yesterday and they were relating to me something that had taken place in their family. And my own perception is that, how are you dealing with it? They seem to be coping pretty well, right? Because they had come to a place where they felt that they had access to resources that could change and transform perceptions of that situation, right? They also felt like if we kept it covered, no one would know, which is also part of the perception of the situation. So when you look at life, right, and you look at your life, you have to ask yourself, what types of filters am I viewing this through? Your filters are your lenses. What types of lenses are you viewing your situation through? Just like I said, 60 years ago, a woman who exercised her sexuality was called a slut. She was decried and demeaned and described in ways. You remember that movie, Harper Valley PTA? You remember that movie? It was made like, was it in the late 1950s or early 60s? Or it was made in the 1970s, but it was depicting American middle class life of the 1950s. And it was about this single woman, single mother, who moved into a community. and she had a child and enrolled the child in school. And the PTA went crazy. The ladies of the PTA went crazy. They assumed that because she had had a child out of wedlock, that she was a slut, that she was sleeping with every man. So guess what she did? She pretended and acted it out, much to their chagrin, when she showed them what they really were like, because it was far from the truth, right? And so you recognize over time that these kinds of perceptions do affect people, the filters that we look at life through. And I want to talk to you specifically about that. I said all of that to lead up to what I want to talk to you about. And that is, how are you viewing your life? What sorts of filters are you attaching to the situations that you encounter? How do you view these situations and its impacts on you? As much as I am trying to read, I don't read as much as I want to because of time. And I really have to, these days, I'm finding that I really, really have to push myself and dedicate myself, because there are so many demands on my time. And so I'm trying to maintain what I've been doing for years, which is reading a lot. I used to read a lot more. I'm not reading as much as I want. And lately I'm coming across where there are gaps in my knowledge base. Can you believe it? Yes. I'm telling myself there's a huge gap here between what you know and what's out there. You don't know what's out there. It's not in here. And so as much as I am exposed to information on what happens to women and how women and society are shown and treated, I'm beginning to get to the place where I've already self-actualized. Let me just put that out there, right? So I'm female, I'm a woman, I'm heterosexual, which means I date and have sex with people of the male gender, right? So I'm comfortable walking in my femininity. I like being feminine. I like being female and all that comes with it. I enjoy that, right? I enjoy being a mother. The fact that I can procreate and have children. I like children and all that kind of stuff. I like being a wife. I like being, I like that. Okay. So having said all of that, though, there are some perceptions that are attached to me. Now, I also have different roles and callings on my life. In one sector of my life in the past, I tried to fulfill that role of the calling of being a pastor, of being a preacher, right? And the way I present myself, I am female, I'm feminine, I'm a woman, I present myself just like you see me. The way that it was received by the people whom I was surrounded by was absolutely unbelievable. They treated me as if I were that woman in the Harper Valley PTA. They acted as if I were sleeping with every man. Just because, and there were so many other people around them who were single mothers with children, it had to have been something personal directed at me after a while, because I'm looking at the experience and I'm like, but there are other single mothers. You're not treating them equally as horribly as you are treating me. They were rude. They were rambunctious. They were intolerable. And this came not just from the hierarchy. It filtered all the way down. So their perception of me was governed by their own feelings and their own traditional ways of thinking, that if a woman looks like that, then she must be a slut or a whore, right? Good morning, Tony. Right? Thank you. Good morning. And so nothing could have been further from the truth. When I did discover that, I was hurt and I was offended, because I kept my integrity. If I say this is what I do, this is what I do, whether the cameras are on or off, whether the lights are on or off, right? And I felt affirmed, and I felt that you were judging me because of your filter. The filter and the lens they were using to look at me was governed by them, right? That was their filter. If you look like this, then you must be sleeping with everyone. Or if you get to a certain place in life, then it must be because you slept. And it offended me. I eventually separated myself from that fellowship because of the sexism that was directed at me, not just from men, but also the negative perceptions from women. And I was not going to be in a place where I felt that I had to take a stand and defend myself for what? Just because I'm pretty and beautiful, you're going to assume that I sleep with everybody? That's your filter, not mine. That's not how I conduct myself. How dare you? And at the time, I was raising my two daughters, one of whom was a baby, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And my older daughter was a teenager, was growing up to be a teenager. And you are talking and treating her mother like that? Now, I say this all the time. The children tell the real story. And you wouldn't be you would be surprised to know that one day, good morning, Frederick. One day, one of the male leaders in this fellowship came to me and said, "We know who you are exactly." And I said, "Really?" And he said, "Because the children tell the story." He said, "Your children are as well behaved and as normal. And that's how we know exactly what is going on in your household." So for while there were the women and other men who were sitting over there, "You must be," there were some others who were saying, "No, you don't know the story," because socially, you can look at certain factors to determine what is going on. And looking at the children tell a different story. So I told my children, "You are my best witnesses," because the people in that fellowship were ready to say things about me. And in fact, that was not true. Do you see what I mean? So this is why you have to be careful about filters. You have to be really careful about how you see yourself and how others see you. You are not responsible for someone's perception of you, because their perception of you is governed by their perspectives. Yes, it's governed by their experiences, their environment, what they have been exposed to, and how they see themselves in that environment. So you're not responsible for someone's perception of you. But here is the key. The key to all of this is how you perceive yourself and how you present yourself, irrespective of the general conditions, the general environment. The general environment is that you are placed categorically based on race, ethnicity, and class and social status. That's a general category. But based on how you perceive yourself, what are your filters that are governing your perspectives and governing the way you place yourself in environments? That's the key. Now, check this out. A few days ago, we had no show on Friday because it's wrapping up to the summer, right? So you want to be free. I want people to be free to go live your lives, right? And so my day, I have demanding days. So I had a doctor's appointment, just a regular checkup. I don't know why okay. So I was like, okay. And after that, it was just, no one could have known that by the end of that day, a young lady would be sitting in my car who is 7 months pregnant, whom I would be talking to about being pregnant, being an unwed mother, because that was important. And I'll tell you why in a minute. And being single and being Black. She was sitting in my car, and she ended up sitting in my car because my daughter offered her a ride to take her to where she was going, right? And so I asked this question, how is everything going? Because my daughters had told me about her before, and I had made some recommendations about how she could access services. And I did it gently because I didn't want to force it on her. It was still up to her and her personhood, keeping that in mind, respecting her choices to find out how she was going to deal with this. And she said, "I'm watching my neighbor do their lawn. Don't you just love summer? The sound of lawnmowers is just everything," right? And I listened to her, and I asked questions about what does the doctor. She said something, and I said, "Well, what did the doctor say about that?" And I learned something. The doctor had not prepared her for the duration of the pregnancy, or given her any expectation of what is likely to happen in the delivery room. had not told her about birth or anything like that. And I could tell that the reason that happened was because of her personhood, her perception of herself. She's totally unaware of how she presents herself. So she presents herself to the society because she's coming from an environment, and in her environment, that is acceptable. When she goes into someone's environment and they don't receive her, she's immediately going to say that they're racist, right? But it's not that so much. And I began to realize that there's a sociological concept to that, and it's attached to the fact that how do you perceive yourself and how do you present yourself? It's very important that you corner the market on who you are, right? And so many of us, based on how this young lady perceives herself and presented herself, she wasn't responsible for other people's perceptions of herself, but the treatment she received was based on one of that pillar, that factor, right? And so I had like 20 minutes to talk to her, and I didn't know there was a time on it, so I began to explain to her, these are some of the questions you should ask. You know what I was doing? Changing the filter. I wanted her to see herself, that if she changed her perception of herself and then she presents herself different, then she's going to receive a different treatment. Now, many of you, we're still living in a world that is color coded. We come in categories: white, black, red, and brown, yellow. If you can believe that, like, human beings are color blocks. I don't think we recognize the extent to which we've done this. And out of that conversation with this young lady, on a couple of days later, I think it was Saturday or yesterday, my daughters and I developed this conversation around anthropology. When I was growing up, they used to, you remember that anthropological teaching that said that white people were smarter. It inferred that white people were smarter because of the shape of your skull, the width of your nose. Those are the things that predetermine your existence, predetermine your intelligence, your skill set, your personality. If you can believe that. And people were described as being Negroid. Remember those terminologies? Mongoloid and Caucasoid. So my daughter said when she was in college and those concepts were described, she said the people in the room were like jaw dropped to the floor. Like, are you really serious that scientists or social scientists just a few 50, 60, 70 years ago actually presented that as fact, that you were intelligent based on the color of your skin, you were intelligent based on the shape of your skull and the width of your nose, your intelligence was based on the region of the earth where you came from, if you were Mongoloid, Negroid, or Caucasoid. I was rolling on the floor laughing. I said, but that sounds like something I read in a book somewhere when I was growing up. Actually, they presented that as historical fact. And my kids were rolling. Now, if that's a societal predisposition, and much to our chagrin today, you're all nodding your heads. Oh, is that where that came from? Absolutely. So now those perceptions still exist. They are being taught informally in social groups, at homes. So many people don't even realize that the racism that they portray and deal with comes from what their grandparents taught them. Their grandparents and their parents socialized them into thinking like that. A lot of people don't realize that, right? So now you look at people and you say, well, if you look like that, then you're predisposed to a certain way of being. It's much like yesterday, after an event was over, somebody came up to us and told us that autism was found to be prevalent amongst African-American males because African-American males have a higher level of testosterone, so it impacts autism. I was like, where did you find that information? I'm waiting on her to message me on Facebook to give me a link to tell me where that came from. That this was actually, and this happened in recent times, that a scientist actually came up with that. So when I told my daughters, they were like, hold on, mommy, hold on. Just a minute, mom. You mean to can you just imagine? Do you see what I'm saying? Filters. No, that's a filter that other people see African American males through. But what about the African American male himself? Someday I'm going to have this conversation with some of you all. Why do you talk to your children the way you do? Why do you say your black ass needs to sit down? He already knows he's black. You realize you're adding more negatives to him? His ass is black. He's not the only one who has a black ass. What about the white kid who has a white ass? I've never heard a white parent say, sit your white ass down. They say, sit yourself down or sit your ass down. Sit down. So why are you black parents telling their kids? Do you see what I'm saying? Or you are Negro, right? Or the negative colloquial term attached to that. Why? It's like calling your daughter a bitch. You tell your daughter you're a whore. You tell your son you're going to grow up to be just like your no good drinking daddy. You tell your daughter, well, your mama was a slut. Your mama was on the street. Your mama was a drug addict. Why do we continue to perpetuate these negative filters? They're negative, right? And so people grow up hearing these things. Their perceptions of themselves are formed, and so they present themselves likewise. So we need to be careful about language. We need to be careful about what we say. And I say this all the time. The recording that is going on in our heads is the most important voice. Now, when I emerged from violence, I encountered a psychologist, a social psychologist. I like to say social because he deals primarily in the impacts of trauma on children. And he said to me, in reading your book, he said, a voice emerged from your book. And he said, who in your environment told you that you would survive all of this? He said, I said, what do you mean? And he said, before it happened to you, someone had prepared you to be great. And he said, whose voice was you hearing in your head that told you you would come out of this? And I said, oh, that was my grandmother. My grandmother used to tell me I was going to grow up to be a great person one day, blah, blah, blah. And he said, that's the key. He said, now in your daughter's experience, he said, you are the voice that is guiding her. Unbelievable. In other words, what I'm saying is, just as much, and some of you, especially you guys here on Twitter and so on, probably say, well, I don't have children yet. Well, you are going to. You're getting ready to. That's why you're hearing this. And it's good advice even for your own self to make sure that you are saying the right things about yourself and you're saying the right things to yourself, right? And so when I look at that, it becomes much more important for us to have the kind of filter. Somebody needs to time me, right? I have things to do, right? It becomes much more important for us to have the right filters on. We have to be able, which voices dominate our experiences? Which voices are we listening to? What voices are telling us that we can overcome, we can do this, we can survive? That, my friends, is ultimately the kicker. Now, somebody's leaving a comment. Pale people without natural melanin always come up with some strange concepts to exist. That's true. That is true. 100 years ago, 200 years ago, I guess they were trying to justify why they went into other people's lands and conquered. And they had to give the natives whose land they were conquering that we came here because we're superior. They had to give some justification. And they were the writers of history. So they had to leave an explanation as to why. That's the only thing I can come up with. Many of us Black folks are starting to greet each other as Aboriginals. Tony Turner, you need to stop, but you're right. Right? So, and even today, you look at how Aborigines people, the original peoples of Australia and the original peoples of New Zealand, you look at today how they are being treated in their own land. I mean, in Australia right now, I think they want to make it illegal for Aboriginal people to even exist. That is unbelievable. You look at it and you say, well, as a social construct, they're probably trying to create a society of equality and parity. But at the same time, you are denying someone's fundamental identity. At the same time, you are saying you're saying that it's illegal for you to exist, but your ancestors owned the land for thousands of years. And so you have to either join with us, become subject to us, and you shouldn't be treated specially. Some of these, it's in an attempt perhaps to, it sounds like it's an attempt to correct something that happened, 300 years ago, but it's also is an attempt to, it's kind of economic genocide. It probably, you're not taking up a gun to shoot someone, but you are still creating genocide just by that. Public policy, right? See, my filters are different, right? So when I read materials like that, it lands on me differently because my filters are different. For some, it says, oh, okay, informative, informational. But for me, it's like, that's a social construct. That's a social pillar that society is built on. You can't just take away that underpinning from other people. How will they view themselves and see themselves in society? That's how it lands on me. In much the same way, when someone tells me or discloses to me that they're gay or they're bisexual or they're in transit and they're not sure what they are, to me, when I look at them, I'm trying to figure out, how do you see yourself? So I usually, when someone asks me that, then they sound like they're questioning their sexuality. I usually just ask, well, when you think of sex, who do you picture? What comes to your mind? What picture comes to your mind of who you should have sex with? And I said, that usually defines who you are. That will tell you who you are. And they're like, oh. So I said, well, the social constructs around you are a little different. And the environment is playing a role in that. You see what I'm saying? So filters, yeah. And I know, yeah, I'm a spiritual counselor. So I heal the spirit. That's what I do. I talk to your spirit, right? It's to motivate you and to get you to thinking of things in a different way. So my perceptions will land on you in a very different way, as opposed to perhaps someone else saying it. It may just sound different, right? Let me see what people are saying. Oh, many of us. Okay, right? So what happens then is my filters then are different. For instance, my adult female life was influenced and affected by abuse, right? So because of that, that's a social construct for me. And that was a defining time, right? So what happened with that is that then determined what kind of filters I look at men through. So if I'm going to date someone, then I look at them through those filters, right? So it's up to me to still choose how I'm going to do this. So if you're joining no filters, so I have no makeup on, right? So you're seeing me raw, as they would say, right? So no makeup, right? Because it's been a long night. I was up writing a grant all night long. I barely can keep my eyes open, but I have a responsibility to deliver to you. So I had to do this. So am I going to sleep now? No, because the grant ain't finished. So I'm going to go full scale into it and probably go all night again tonight. Oh. It's what we do, right? Those of us who work independently, it's what we do, right? So you might go to work 9 to 5. And some of you are like, I'm retired. I'm sitting at home watching you. My years of getting up are done. So again, filters, right? Filters. How do you see yourself? And how you perceive yourself is how you present yourself. So you might, some people wear masks, so they pretty up and fix up the outer layer, but inside, and so they present this. As people, we judge a book by its cover. So we'll look at how someone presents themselves and treat them accordingly. I think there is some truism to what my grandmother had told me when I was growing up. Always put your best foot forward. When I'm going somewhere, I dress to match the situation, but I also dress to be the best that I can be. Now, if it makes someone else uncomfortable, or if it makes someone else question themselves, that's entirely their issue. My concern is to make sure that I present myself in the best possible light. that I make sure that I present myself as the best version of myself, right? So I make sure that I go out and I look great at all times, right? Because that's my thing, right? I'm trying to be the best that I can be. Now, for someone else, they might be offended by how you present yourself. Yes, they are. And that's where those negative interactions take place. They could be based on race, ethnicity, or socioeconomic statuses, socioeconomics, right? So they become offended by how you present yourself. It's almost as if they want you to have their permission to be you, right? But how you present yourself is based upon how you see yourself. I've seen too many people who are qualified by studying. So they have attended a course qualification, but how they present themselves is not reflective of their experience. It's not reflective of what they have studied. Now, there's some things we don't have any control over. I'm going to be me all day, show up in my skin all day, right? And so I don't have any control over that. I can't change that. That's me. That's how I was created, right? So I can't change that. And I can't change someone else's perception that the minute they look at me, they're going to ascribe certain characteristics to me that are not individual because they have nothing to do with me. I can't control that. But you know what I can control? My perception of myself in that situation. My perception of me and how I present myself. I couldn't care less how you see me or what you want to do. I'm here. This is what I'm doing. Are you going to deliver or not? That's my guideline, right? And so it becomes important then for us to have the right kind of filters. Do you see what I'm saying? I know this is helping you. It becomes important for you to have the right filters on. You've got to have the right filter. You've got to be able to see the situation clearly for what it is. And you've got to be able to see yourself. Now, you want to succeed. Is success part of you, whatever you define success as? If you want, let's say you want to finish well or you want to do something well, how do you see yourself in that situation? Now, I can't talk about you, but I'm going to talk about me. Now, I was born of a single mother. I never had at my conception. May have been present when I was born, but he was not there for the duration for the early childhood experiences. So he was physically, emotionally, and financially absent, right? That's my background, right? So I was raised by a woman who was a single mother for most of the time that I was growing up, right? So the way that I perceive myself, however, has nothing to do with that. No, I don't see myself as the child of a single mother. Therefore, there are certain negatives that come with that. You can't do that. I don't see myself like that. Never did. Because of the voice that was in my head telling me I was going to be great and I was created to do great things. That's what I believed. That's what I believed about myself. And therefore, that's how I continue to present myself. So, socially, I got married, was beaten up, ended up with 2 children and being single. Do you think when I go out in the community, I present myself as a single mother with 2 children, divorced, disadvantaged, disenfranchised? Nope. I don't present myself as such because that's not my perception of myself. I present myself as being empowered and I have a goal to help others overcome their adversities. And the way that I do that is through this medium. That's how I present myself. My perception of myself changed. Now, there are other people around me who have had a similar background, but how they perceive themselves is how they present themselves. And the deficit between they and I arrives at that. That's their social construct. They don't see it that way because they perhaps never looked at it like that, or perhaps never thought about it. But for me, that's how I saw it. And I couldn't change that, but I can change the way I think about it. And that's where you win. Ladies and gentlemen, it is in your thinking. Your greatness lies in your thinking. It lies in your filters, how you present yourself, and how you see yourself. So here's the thing. I'm, on Saturday morning, I had to do what they call a target run. So I'm giving you an example. So I was in my sweats, and I was like, I woke up Saturday morning because I've been writing a Grand Friday night, all day Friday. I was tired. I had no makeup, no liner, no mascara, no foundation, nothing. I had on sweats and a hoodie and a tank top that says run, live, love, or some foolishness like that. And I went to Target. And I said, let me see how they're going to treat me today based on the fact that I was wearing no makeup. And just as I expected, the way that I perceive myself and present myself is inherent in my thoughts and actions and how I carry myself. Didn't matter if I had makeup on. What mattered is that my personhood was prepared. Guess what? They didn't treat me any differently. They still treated me with respect. People still stopped, smiled, and said hello. Black, white, yellow, green, red, everybody. They still stopped and said hello. They still were courteous. They just said, ma'am, this way. Yes, ma'am, you can go before me. Let me hold the door for you, ma'am, because of my personhood. Do you see what I'm saying? So often what we have done is we say we have to change this. So people go and do radical forms of plastic surgery and radical forms of surgery in an effort to augment and improve the physical presentation. It is how you think that matters. Because the success about that is how you think combined with the improvements you've made physically, we're going to land you somewhere. But you know what? See the difference? It's how you think. You think that if you do this, it's going to change what happens to you. It comes right back to what I've been saying all morning long. How you think about yourself. What filters are you looking at yourself through? And what filter are you presenting to the world, right? So go to my website, harrietkamak.com. Thank you for visiting my site, right? And also invite me to speak somewhere. If you know of an opportunity that might come, invite me to come and encourage and motivate others. This message has been a blessing to you. Share it with others. I encourage you to comment on it, share it with others so others can hear what you're experiencing every day. Go to the exodusfoundation.com. Right on our homepage, it says contribute, help us to continue to deliver services to survivors of human trafficking who are so desperate to hear what you are getting. Help us to do that. Thank you so much. It is Monday. Go live your best life. Come on. It's time for you to hang up from me and go live your best life. Put the right filter on about how you see yourself and how you're going to knock this out and how you present yourself. Doesn't matter where you start. Does not matter where you start. What matters is how you finish. Finish well, my friends. Thanks so much, everybody. Be blessed. Hey, how are you all doing? Thank you for joining. Talk to you later, right? All righty. Gotta go. Gotta go. Time is up. Say time's up. Time is up. Thanks, everybody.